Right now, 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 right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the war. The government has been getting bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the major crash that is happening right now on Bitcoin. As you guys know, we have been calling for a $94,000 to $100,000 Bitcoin over the last month and a half. That was fulfilled, and we also discussed the possibility of Bitcoin dropping down to $88,000 to $92,000 to hit some final liquidity. Is Bitcoin going to go lower from here? That's what we're going to discuss, because it's kind of starting to look like it. We've had some very strong overside, underside tests on the market that we're going to be discussing, and I'm very excited to be here with you. So without much further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. As you guys know, Bitcoin needed to drop down and fill the CME futures gap between $91,000 and $92,000. That CME futures gap has now been filled, but where's bounce? Bounce seems to be nowhere to be found. We are now about 3 days post death cross, and typically speaking, we should be finding a bottom basically right about now if Bitcoin is going to have a major bounce. As you can see, we should be seeing some kind of bounce, and that's not what we're seeing, right? You look at these death crosses so far in this cycle, and typically Bitcoin has a correction or some kind of bounce or some kind of bullishness by now. That's not happening. On top of that, Bitcoin did exactly what I was expecting it might do over the last few days, and I've been watching this extensively on my own analysis to manage our own portfolio. Bitcoin originally, if you'll remember, hit exactly 94,000. That is the exact level that it hit. We then called after it hit 94 that it would drop back down to 88 to 90 to hit the liquidity that was down there and fill the CME futures gap. Then we talked about a bounce. I watched this bounce over the entirety of yesterday, and I sat here and I watched and I waited to see if we were going to break above 94, and we didn't. I said on Twitter a few days ago that if we reject at 94,000, that is a pretty significant bear market signal, and I'm leaning in that direction now, but not in the traditional bear market sense that you would expect. I'm very much starting to lean in the direction that instead of Bitcoin having a bullish rest of Q4, that unless we can get a very strong bounce at some point here, I'm talking in like the next couple of days, like the next few hours, we are having to start leaning in that direction, that if Bitcoin cannot find its footing here in the high 80s, that we probably will be starting to go back down towards those mid to low 80s, if not even lower. Now, I want to kind of break down what we're going to discuss in today's video, because there are a few very important topics. The first and foremost, we're going to look at the short term. Where is Bitcoin going? Are we going to drop below 88? When this puppy hits 88, you're going to see some serious, you know what, right? What's going to happen is that if Bitcoin breaks below 88, then that's where you're going to start seeing this cascading correction where Bitcoin is going to have this very substantial drop. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. Second, though, we're going to talk about what a potential bear market would look like. As you guys know, we have told you time and time again that a bear market in Bitcoin would look like this. We're most likely not going to drop 80%. In fact, that is almost entirely off the table. We would most likely drop to between $57,000 to $75,000, and that bottom would probably be found sometime in mid to late next year, possibly even sooner than that, depending on how quickly Bitcoin drops. The faster it drops, the sooner we find the bottom. The longer it takes for us to find the bottom, of course. And so we're going to be discussing, first and foremost, the short-term technicals, and then we're going to be looking at whether or not we're going to have a bear market. Jeb, did you get liquidated at 100? Everybody's talking about that 30x long I did. Let me just be very clear. That was $80. Like, it was a tiny little long. It was, everybody's like, oh my gosh, Jeb, you got it. No, we used proper risk management. We lost half an R factor. It was a tiny little long that we were going to ladder into if Bitcoin caught back up. I lost, like, I think $4. Get over it. Like, seriously, come on, guys. I mean, you got to understand that there are opportunities where if Bitcoin is close to a bottom, that's what you do. You long right there at the bottom with a tight stop loss right below the bearish confirmation, and then you stop out if you go through the bearish confirmation because you risk basically nothing, and then if it goes to the upside, you make 10x. That's how you trade. Okay, come on now. Anybody who knows how to trade knows that. All right, let's read a little bit of chat. Someone said, don't puke on us. No, I won't. I won't. So yeah, let's talk about this short-term analysis here. Bitcoin, as we talked about, found a very strong bottom here at 94. Sorry, not a very strong bottom, a very well-predicted bottom here at 94,000. We basically had no bounce off of it. When we bounced off of 94 and there was like no momentum here, this is where we were concerned that Bitcoin was going to fall back below 94. That's exactly what Bitcoin did. It put a little bit of price below 94, a little bit more, and even more. And what ended up happening is no break below 94 became just a little bit of a break below 94, which became a large break below 94, which became setting it as resistance about midday yesterday, and then we end up going through this major correction here. And so this is very clearly a trend break. This is very, very clearly a support level break. I would say trend break, but 94 is a flat level. So this is a support level break. You have that overside test and you have this underside test. That's why it's called an overside underside test. This is definitionally a very bearish signal. And so with Bitcoin setting $94,000 as resistance, and we came back up here and rallied above the bottom of the CME futures gap, we rejected, and now we've gone to set a lower low. The only thing that can really save Bitcoin right now from going significantly lower than where we are right now would be this bullish RSI divergence that is building here. But honestly, you got to be careful with bullish RSI divergence because the drop's not necessarily over. If Bitcoin just drops down here to like 88, you're not going to have the bullish RSI divergence anymore because the RSI is going to drop down to the same place we were, which is 24, and then the bullish RSI divergence disappears. So you can't actually consider this as confirmed bullish RSI divergence to say the bullish RSI divergence is going to hold the market up right now because you just don't know that there is that bottom yet. You need to see at least a few, in this case, hourly candlesticks push to the upside before you can start calling bullish RSI divergence. So what we need to see is that Bitcoin is going to have a bounce, and if it doesn't, here at 88, that's where you're really expecting Bitcoin to start going significantly lower. So what I am expecting at this point is that at some point Bitcoin's going to have a bounce, but I'm not exactly convinced of when it's going to be. So let's just go ahead and look at different places where a bounce might happen. First thing to point out is that the long-term bull market support uptrend is technically still intact. It's been altered a little bit, but it's still technically intact. You can draw a line right here to support the whole bull market, and it no longer comes in contact with this bottom, but it actually perfectly comes in contact with these two bottoms, because the original way that we drew the bull market support uptrend was connecting bottom A and bottom C, but we actually had an overextension on bottom B right here. See? If you connect the first bottom here, right, and you connect that third bottom, and that gives us that price target of 94, then you actually are seeing that the market is violating, that the bottoms are violating the uptrend here. If you say, okay, well, what if we draw it like this? And we validate bottom A and bottom B, but we do not come all the way down to test it in bottom C, then what you end up seeing happen is that Bitcoin is still sitting right here above this. And this is where you've got to really pay attention to the different major, impulse structures on the market. There are times where the market is going to invalidate your trend line by a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the trend line is completely invalidated. But what I will say here, guys, is I am very heavily, I'm not quite ready to call it, but I'm very heavily leaning in the direction that this is a failed bottom. Big part of the reason for that is because if you look at the Fibonacci, you can see that Bitcoin fell straight through the 0.618, cut through it like butter. The 0.618 at 94, all of that support architecture that we had at 94, we had the CME gap filling, we had this uptrend filling in its original form, we had the 0.618, all of it has capitulated. And so we have to consider the fact that Bitcoin has gone through the single fastest correction that we have seen in a very long time. And so when we see that extremely fast correction here, down 30% in 43 days, this doesn't really look like what we've seen before. Over here, we dropped 32% in 79 days. Here, we dropped 30% in 43 days. Now, it's a smaller correction, but it's significantly faster. It's almost twice as fast. And even over here, you can see that on the flip side, you have 178 days to go down 28%. So we're already larger than the first major bull market correction, and we're still moving faster than the second, even though we're not quite as low. So really, we are in that transitionary phase where I'm not confident enough to say Bitcoin's going down to 70, although we're going to talk about those possibilities, but we're very heavily moving in that direction. Very, very, very heavily moving in that direction. If you'll remember, we were right up here. Right here at 116,000 on October the 13th, we called for Bitcoin to drop down to 94. This was our call, and it came true. We're now just a couple of days past that. We are gathering information. We're in the information gathering stage before we make another call, but I am starting to lean in that direction that Bitcoin's going to need to go lower because Bitcoin is really failing to catch some of these support levels that we've discussed. It's moving significantly to the downside. But I want to talk about something a little bit more encouraging than that. The fact of the matter is, we are having a very serious correction on Bitcoin, and we're not catching that bottom right around that bearish cross, that death cross, like we would be expecting. But I want to talk about why I don't believe that we're going into a typical 4-year halving cycle bear market. Now, depending on how you define the word bear market, the situation I'm about to present to you either is or is not a bear market. So let's get very clear on what a bear market is and is not. And we've got to make sure we define our terms because some of you guys are going to define this differently. If you define a bear market as 77%, 1 year long, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't believe this is going to happen. That's what happened here, and that's what happened over here. I don't think that we're about to see that. If you define a bear market, and this is a very fair definition, if you define a bear market as saying it's going 40% plus to the downside, it's going to last 6+ months, and you start reining in that definition, this is something that I think you're probably going to see. I am very much leaning in this direction. As Bitcoin starts to break a lot of the support architecture, I do firmly believe that Bitcoin, if it doesn't get some kind of major bounce here, could go lower. Now, the good news is, and I will say this, Bitcoin has dropped back down to this moving average. If you haven't already seen this, this is a very important moving average. This is on the 3-daily chart. This is the 200 on the 3-daily, right? Bitcoin has dropped back down to catch it as support. This is a level that has been critical in previous markets. We rejected off of it here, traded through it here, bounced off of it here. It's also a market that it's also a level that the market held on before we went into a cascading correction, right? So that's something to keep in mind here is that we dropped in the last bear market, we dropped $34,000 over 77 days. And then once we fell through that again, we dropped another $30,000, 62% straight through that level. So this is once again, one of those levels that if Bitcoin doesn't hold, it just means more cascading correction. What I will say here is that the likelihood of a short-term bounce is becoming extremely high. These are some of the most oversold levels that Bitcoin has seen in a very long time. We've seen Bitcoin down here at 30 on the RSI. The last time that we saw Bitcoin down at 30 on the RSI was all the way back at the bottom of the previous bear market. Like, this is very rapid selling. The last time we saw RSI this low began right here, ended right here. You see that? That was this section of market right here. That's the last time we saw anything greater than that. And so what this indicates is that there is probably going to be some kind of bounce, but I'm very heavily leaning in the bearish direction at this point. Unless Bitcoin gets a very strong bounce, that's where we're going to have to see some more correction. This is starting to look a lot less like a mid-cycle correction, and it's starting to look a lot more like the beginning of something larger. But again, I want to talk about what that something larger is, right? What is your definition of bear market? For any of you guys in chat, what is your definition of bear market? Seriously, how long does a bear market last? What percentage of a drop do you define? Right, and so that's where we have to figure out what our definitions are before we can start, having a conversation. We have to get our definition straight. So, what do you define a bear market as? If you say a bear market is we're dropping 77%, I firmly do not believe that that's going to happen. That would require Bitcoin dropping to 28,000. I do not see that happening. If a bear market is a break of structure, and that break of structure is a break of this stair-step structure, I do think that's probably what's happening, and frankly, we've already seen that take place, right? Because we've seen Bitcoin drop significantly lower in the fibs than we did in these previous cycles. This one we dropped to 0.382, that's a lot stronger. This one we dropped down to 0.618, as you can see here. Right now, Bitcoin is on trajectory to drop down to the 0.786. This is a significant break of structure, right? We've got support down here, but it's a significant break of structure down at 85. A drop down to 85 is becoming more likely. And again, if you say that the break of structure in the market so far is bear market, then by that definition, we're already in one, right? Because we are breaking structure. Anything below 94 is that break of structure, because 94 was not just this uptrend. It was also, as we discussed, it was also 0.618. So as far as I'm concerned, if we don't get back up above 94,000 in the next few days, and this is the first call of this stream that I'll make other than just analyzing Again, remember, we have two different things that we do on the market. We analyze and we synthesize. Each part of your brain is set up to do this. And if you want to be a profitable analyst or a profitable entrepreneur or a useful leader, you have to be able to analyze and synthesize. Analyzation is breaking things apart into its subsequent pieces, breaking it apart into 100 different data points, and then synthesis is pulling it all together into an actual prediction. So our first synthesis idea, our first prediction is that if Bitcoin does not get above $94,000 with strength soon, and I'm going to say probably this weekly close, that's probably where I would draw the line. Like if this weekly close does not get above 94, that's where I'm going to say we're going into a bear market. But what does that mean? Once again, what does a bear market mean? When I say bear market, it might mean something different than when you say bear market. When you say bear market, you might mean 77%. I don't mean that. I don't think Bitcoin's going down 77%. If, and this is where we can start building the if BTC does not break close weekly candle above 94K, right? This is where we can start synthesizing. Now that we've analyzed, we can start synthesizing. If Bitcoin does not close weekly candlestick above 94K, then BTC likely corrects to blank. Let's figure out what blank is. Where does Bitcoin drop if we don't close above 94? Or, you know, worst case scenario, Bitcoin comes up here and it rejects off of 94, right? And we just set this like little hammer formation down here where Bitcoin has this liquidity dump to fill liquidity, rallies up to 94, and we just have this little spinning top and it just falls over. That would be very bad because you also, of course, see this 50 weekly moving average curving over. This is the first time it's pointed down. So at this point, I do want you guys to know what I'm doing. I want to be very transparent. I am de-risking. I've already sold the vast majority of our altcoins. Have been doing that for the last few weeks in preparation of a move down to 94 and the possibility of it moving lower. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've said over and over and over and over and over again, be ready for bear market, even if we don't think one's coming. I am not ready to call that the bear market has started, but I'm like right on the cusp of it. Like right on the cusp of it. I still think that 2026 is going to be a bullish year, but I do think that we're right on the cusp of a bear market. But again, I want to define what bear market means. I don't think that Bitcoin's going down 77%. I don't think you're having the traditional 4-year halving cycle bear market. I think it's going to be something different than that. So let's talk about what this is. So here's the deal. Bitcoin is significantly different than it was last cycle. And I know everybody says, oh, this time is different. This time is different. No, listen. We have a perspective as a company in the industry who knows everybody. Like we know everybody in the industry. We have a perspective that you don't have. I'm not trying to lord that over you. I'm just being honest. I have a perspective on the industry that you do not have. And from that perspective, basically everybody in the industry, I'm not talking about all the plebeians on Twitter. I'm talking about people in the industry. I'm talking about exchanges. I'm talking about companies. I'm talking about, whales. I'm talking about all of them. They basically all agree that this top up at 126 was significantly different than this top, and it was for one specific reason, and that's because we have institutional Wall Street market makers in this game that we did not have before. Wall Street has no interest in Bitcoin going down 77%. None. They have no interest in that, because what ends up happening, and I've been saying this for years, what ends up happening is that if that takes place, they end up having egg on their face, and they have to explain to Granny why she's not able to retire for another 4 years because of the 4-year halving cycle. They have no interest in that. What they do have an interest in, what the whales do have an interest in, what these OG sellers do have an interest in, what everybody has an interest in up here is they're shorting down to 70. And a lot of big players are interested in buying Bitcoin at 70,000, 65,000, 75,000. This is the zone that everybody's looking at. Again, behind the scenes. Like, this is not the kind of stuff that people are talking about in the public. And this is where you get the idea, like Jon Snow dies. There you go. The herd isn't always wrong, is it? Well, the herd is wrong in this case. Right? What a lot of people are not realizing is that a lot of these exchanges, a lot of these big players, they have entries down at 70, and they want them filled. This is why you come to this channel. We have information that everybody else doesn't. There are a great number of whales and market makers that are pointing right here. And they don't mind Bitcoin running straight down there and then bouncing and rallying so long as they get their fill. And so what I am expecting to happen at this point is that, once again, there is that if statement, because, I mean, it might not happen. But if Bitcoin does not get above 94, we're looking at previous cycle, $75,000 to $70,000, like pre-cycle highs. So let's just kind of work our way from the ground up. What is the absolute worst case scenario for Bitcoin? Absolute catastrophic worst case scenario for Bitcoin is this. Like, this is not most likely going to happen. Like 99% chance this doesn't happen, but here's the absolute worst case scenario for what happens in a bear market so that you can be ready for it. The last bear market, dropped us down to 15,000. That was 25% lower, about 20 to 25% lower than previous cycle highs. If Bitcoin did the same thing, we dropped 20% below previous cycle highs, that would be a drop down to $54,000. Literally, based on that, a comparable bear market bottom compared to the last bear market bottom would be a bottom right here at $54,000. That'd be a drop of 20%. Drop it down to $50,000, and that is a drop down here to 28%. 28%. And that would correspond with a drop below the 200 weekly moving average right here, which is what happened in the previous bear market. Previous bear market, we dropped below the 200 weekly moving average, and once we kind of got away from it, that's when Bitcoin started moving to the upside, right? And so this would probably paint the picture of Bitcoin going worst case scenario down to about 55, a bounce and a run, moving into the later part of next year. That's what that would expect, is that you would see Bitcoin spend the next several months dropping down to 55 at the worst, but probably not that low, and bouncing. And this is where, if you will recall, starting on October the 15th, we got a lot of trolls in chat that just don't like to remember things. Right over here, we talked about how Bitcoin was going to go to $94,000 to $100,000, which we fell straight through. And then we also said that Bitcoin might dump down to 88 to hit liquidity, because there was a big liquidation pocket down here, right here, which got hit, by the way. On the other hand, we also said that there was a 10% chance that if Bitcoin was not able to hold above 88K, that it would drop down into a miniature bear market, and that bear market would lead us down to 57 to 75,000. This is where we start initiating that part of the plan. Ever since basically the top, we've been talking about all of this. And those numbers come from these different areas. Like, for example, the 0.618 is $57,000, right? The 0.618 is $57,000. That would be a 55% drop on Bitcoin. I am anticipating at this point that if Bitcoin does not hold 88,000, and if Bitcoin cannot reacquire above 94, then a drop as low as $57,000 is possible, but the bottom is probably going to look somewhere closer to 70. So this is where we are starting to build our next phase prediction. Again, our first prediction, based on all of the inside information that we have, based on all of the analysis, based on all the fundamental analysis, and based on over 8 years of analyzing this market every single day. I'm a leading expert on the Bitcoin market. Based on all of that analysis, we told you that Bitcoin was going to 94 to 100,000. There's a possibility we bounce at 100, but 94 is actually the target. And we also said that a liquidity sweep down to $88,000 was likely, which is what you are seeing happen today. These are things that we've been talking about for the last 40 days, ever since October the 13th. You're welcome to go back and watch the videos for yourself. Now, what I'm telling you is that if Bitcoin does not bounce and break above 94, if it starts breaking below 88, this is where we start saying that it's going to hit these fib levels. It's going to come down to 84, right? It's going to come down to 84. 84 is also, in case you forgot, it is also the 0.786 off of this correction. This is, and I quote, for many different players behind the scenes, worst case scenario. This is where I'm leaning much more heavily in this direction of a correction. This is, and I quote, worst case scenario. Bitcoin only drops down to 84, because most of the market makers, most of the exchanges, most of the whales, they want Bitcoin to go down to 70. They want those entries. So the big players, they consider a drop only down to 85 to be bad, because they've got entries and they've got bids at 70. That's what they're anticipating. They want to see a drop down to 70. Most likely won't go below 57. They want to drop down to 70. So Bitcoin at this point in time, and we can start kind of zoning, honing in this. At some point, probably like right here is where you find the bottom. Somewhere right in here. Again, this is all if we do not regain 94. If we regain 94, then that's where Bitcoin's probably going into a parabolic, just absolutely crazy. We just got to paint our green arrow, right? Paint the green arrow. Boom. There you go. Oh, the red arrow. Let's make that green. All right. We got to get this right, guys. It's all about the green arrow. There we go. Got the green arrow. Or is that yellow? Who knows? I'm colorblind. You feel free to make fun of me in the comments. There we go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I know that's yellow. If we manage to get above 94, sky's the limit. Probably not going to happen. most likely what you're going to see happen if Bitcoin does not get above 94 is a drop on the order of about 50% to 55% tops, because everybody, the whales and the exchanges, big players, they have entries at 70. That's why, by the way, this is another reason why the market is flushing so much. You want to know why is the market flushing so much? I'll tell you why the market's flushing so much. The market is flushing so much because most of the big players have their bids down there at 70. That's why. They're not buying yet. They're holding. This is why, once again, I cycled out of all of my altcoins several weeks ago. I just finished cycling out of some of the last of them a few days ago, because I think we're going lower. And as Bitcoin goes lower, the altcoins are going to bleed. They're going to bleed. They're going to bleed real bad. That's what I expect is going to happen. The altcoins are going to bleed. There will be an alt season at some point in the future, but I don't know if you've noticed, I don't talk a lot about alt season because I think it's really far in the future. I don't think it happens until you have a higher liquidity environment. Now, we also need to talk about timing. There are a huge amount of macro fundamentals on the horizon. This is likely going to be a faster bear market crash than we've seen in past. In past over here, we took, you can see, about 380 days to hit the bottom. I'm not real convinced that's going to happen. I'm not real convinced that's going to happen at all. For us to spend 380 days down here, that means the bottom is like basically the week of the midterms. Like the week of the midterms. That's not going to happen. That's not what we are going to see happen here at all. You are probably going to see this correction happen a hell of a lot faster because everybody behind the scenes wants bids down at 57 to 70. If we go down there, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Just don't. Just don't be surprised. So if Bitcoin at this point cannot get above 94, we're going down into this zone. And as we do more analysis, I'll probably narrow in this zone. But generally speaking, it's somewhere in here. Worst case scenario, we bounce at 84. Why do I say worst case scenario? Because we want low entries. Best case scenario, we drop all the way down to 57. This is what myself, being an investor in the Bitcoin market for almost a decade, this is what the whales, this is what's the institutions, this is what the ETFs, this is what Sailor, this is what the exchanges, this is what they all want. They want Bitcoin to go down to 57 to 84, and they want to buy the crap out of the dip. And here's what's going to happen. Unless some kind of major exchange, I'm talking about like a gigantic exchange, implodes, you're probably not seeing Bitcoin go down to like 40,000. I have publicly said that Bitcoin will never trade below $40,000 ever again. I'm tempted to say that Bitcoin will never trade below $50,000 ever again, but I can't be quite that confident. I am extraordinarily confident that Bitcoin will never trade below $40,000 ever again. You see the 200 weekly moving average moving up here. If you kind of, and it's dangerous to extrapolate, but generally it's probably going to move something like this. It's going to slow down a little bit because we're lower, but generally it's somewhere down here. If you break below that, the same way we did the last time, you see a drop down to like 55 to 57,000. That's on the 0.618. You end up having a bear market correction that's no longer 70%, but it's 55, and that's where you see this market maturing a great deal. You never saw the blow off top. You never saw Bitcoin rally over here from 3,000 to 65,000. You saw it rally $62,000 in 420 days. It's a 1,500% movement, right? And so again, I can't hammer this home enough. Bitcoin whales want to see bids filled at 70. That's what they want. They want to see us maybe revisit previous cycle highs. They want to see us revisit 70,000, and that's where we're most likely going. So that's my prediction. If you don't see Bitcoin manage to regain above 94, which is basically right here. I mean, this underside overside test is telling. If you don't see us regain here, that's where we're going lower. So here's our prediction. Below, market is below 94. Bitcoin's off to 57 to 75K. Above 94K, off to, I'm just going to say all-time high. I don't know what exactly the target would be right there. We're not really thinking too much about that. So that's the idea. Like if Bitcoin wants to go into a rally, that's fine, but it's got to reclaim 94 and then it's got to reclaim 100, which we, once again, told you very clearly that these are the levels to watch for. You can see them right there. There's 100, there's 94. You can see very clearly how seriously the market took those levels. That is not a surprise to anybody who's watched our channel. So that's our call. That's what we're expecting. I'd love to hear your opinions on that in the comments section. We'll read some chat. Doesn't make any sense how you can say these things with such conviction. Guys, again, this is not my first rodeo. I've been doing this for a while, right? There's a reason that I moved and positioned myself for Bitcoin to drop down to 94. There's also a reason why I am right now moving and positioning myself for a drop down lower if we don't reclaim 94. Now, I will say it is possible that Bitcoin builds some RSI divergence here, bounces and rallies above 94. Great. That's why, as a technical analyst, we have conditions on every single prediction because I am a professional technical analyst. That's the way that you do this. When you go through the CMT, the Charter Market Technician, you understand that that's exactly how you do things. You say, if this, then that. You don't just say, this is where we're going. That's not right. That's fiduciarily irresponsible of me to tell you, we're going to do this. Because what ends up happening is I say, we are going to do this. Well, first of all, that doesn't make any sense biblically because the Bible says you don't need to say, I'm going to go do this because you don't know whether you're going to live tomorrow. It's immoral to say for an absolute fact, this is what's going to happen. What we do want to see is we want to say, if this analysis plays out, then this is the outcome of that analysis. If this analysis plays out, then that's the outcome of that. All right. Let's read some chat. Let's read some chat. If this is true, why didn't you say that weeks ago? I did. I said that if we break below 94 and we don't hold it, then that's where we're going to go. we're going to go down to 75. That's what we said. If Bitcoin does not hold 94,000, Bitcoin's going to 75. That's what we said. And right now, this is not looking like a we're holding 94. This looks like a we're rejecting off of 94. It's exactly what we said over and over. Feel free to use Grok or any other artificial intelligence to search all of my calls. We've not been right on everything. I will say this. We talked about gold bleeding into Bitcoin. That hasn't happened yet. I think that will happen, but we were off on the timing on that. We were wrong. I was just plain and simply wrong, right? So, yeah, I mean, that was a good call, but it's probably going to be a year from now. Like, it's not happening right now. How much volume is actually dumping, or is there a lack of buyers? I think that a lot of it is that there's a lack of buyers because they're buying lower. There's a lot of bid, but it's lower than where we are right now. And also, here's the other thing that you have to understand. The market is still shaken from what happened on 10/10. A lot of people, this was rough. I mean, we have never seen anything like this before. This was diabolical. 10/10 shattered confidence in investors. And so when 10/10 happened, it's not surprising. Again, right here, October the 13th, we called for Bitcoin to go here. That's what we said. And we also said, if this doesn't hold, then we're going down to 75 too. That's what we said. And the reason for that was because this crash had people crapping themselves. Like, it really did not go over well with people. And it basically, it was I can't prove this, but I would not be surprised if this was a coordinated, manipulated event to trigger a bear market that wouldn't have happened otherwise, so that those bids could get filled down there. I'm going to leave it at that, but I would not be at all surprised if that happened. And that's why, once again, I'm trying to peel the curtain back for you here. Take it or leave it. I mean, if you don't want to hear it, don't hear it. But I'm trying to explain to you what I'm seeing and hearing from people on the inside. The reason that everybody was selling up above 100 is because they were starting to get this information. We got a little bit later than they did, but we do have it now. And so that's why, we said, technically speaking, it's going to 94, but then I was like, okay, 94 and holding, what's going on? And I asked around, and I was like, oh, I know what's going on. Everybody's got bids down at 70, and they're dying for them to get filled because they know with having a pro-crypto president, pro-crypto legislation that's coming, pro-crypto liquidity that's coming in, 2026 and 2027 are going to be enormous, and they want a $70,000 entry so they can sell at 300 and make 500%. That's what's going on. That is what's happening. Didn't you say the bear markets no longer exist? Didn't you say the 4-year cycle is broken and then we'll hit 250K soon? Yeah, we're going to hit 250K. It's going to take a few years. I never said that's going to happen tomorrow. Never said that. It'll happen. It'll happen by the end of this decade. Watch it happen. It'll happen by the end of this decade. I'm very confident of that. I firmly believe that'll happen. As far as the 4-year cycle being broken, the 4-year cycle is broken in the sense that you're not seeing a 77% drop anymore. But yeah, the timing lines up perfectly. And that is something that's absolutely true. The timing on this lines up perfectly. 100% perfectly. 100% perfectly. I mean, you go from bottom to top, it's almost exactly 1,050 days, which is what you've seen from 4-year cycles before. See? 1,050, But yeah, no, I mean, you're right on that. I'll give you that. See, 850, but the actual bottom was over here. 1,070. So yeah, the timing on October the 6th, I am very much confident at this point that October the 6th was a cycle top. I just think that this bear market is going to be smaller than what we've seen in past. That's what I think. And I think you're going to see much less downside than you did before, because I'm telling you guys, from just adding all the pieces together, there's probably $50 billion worth of bid down here at 70. And if you know anything about the way the markets work, they hunt the bid. They hunt the bid. They say, there's the bid, I'm going for it, because there's no other bid above it. I mean, it just psychologically makes sense. If there's no bid up here, then the market goes into free fall. If all the bid's down here, then it hunts the bid. So again, here's the second piece of counsel I'm going to give for you. Be ready to acquire Bitcoin at 70. Be ready to not get liquidated at 70. Do not long this market right now. Clear? Like, do not long. Don't long. It's really not a good idea. Do not long. Do not long this market. There's a high possibility that the bottom is not in and it could be significantly farther. And there's also, I need you to understand this, like, you need to move quickly. There is a possibility that, I mean, Bitcoin's just been going straight down because, again, there's no bid. All the bid's lower. All the bid's down here. Everybody wants a discount. Everybody who's moving the market wants a discount. So, like, it's very possible that we do this and it's like, you know, like 2 months from now. Like, we could be down at 70 if we don't get above 94. It could just be this kind of teardrop effect that people have talked about where Bitcoin just dumps straight to 70. If that happens, you complete the whole bear market in like 4 months. It's possible. So, I mean, for it to go much lower than 57, you'd have to see some major players blow up. I mean, I'm talking really big players blow up. Don't think that's going to happen. Let's see. The idea is to DCA. Yes, yes. Now's the time to be DCAing because we're already down 30% from all-time high. Already down. I'm keeping my dry powder for 48K, maybe 52K, depends on how bad jobs reports are in December and January. That's the other thing. We got to see jobs reports. We have to see what the FOMC is going to do. But here's the thing, and this is why I think this is my overall thesis. At this point, we've confirmed that some kind of bear market seems to be occurring, right? We've confirmed that our call that we're not going into a bear market is probably wrong. We had called for 94, but we expected a bounce. That didn't happen. Now I understand why it didn't happen. It happened because there was no bid at 94. There was no bid at 94. All the bids lower. And so the reason that we didn't hold there is because we held briefly because the technical level, but we didn't hold it for very long because it didn't have the fundamental backing for 94 being a bottom. The bid is all down around 75 to 60. Like, really, that's where a lot of the bid is. The bid ask, the bid is people buying. That's where a lot of the entries are. And so the market is hunting that. And so we were wrong. Bitcoin is probably not going to bounce. If it does, it'll be because we broke above 94. If Bitcoin breaks above 94, then that's fine. I'm willing to flip bullish again. But at this point in time, I'm bearish below 94. Like, that's the line in the sand, is 94,000. If 94,000 does not hold, right, which it didn't, fall over. This right here, by the way, was the place that I liquidated the very last of our altcoins and began heavily de-risking the position. We already were de-risking our position. We de-risked it even more. Because when we did, and if you'll remember, we find it on X, we said that at that 94 flipping from support to resistance would be catastrophic for Bitcoin. On November the 18th, yesterday, failing to break 94 and turning 94K into resistance would be catastrophic for Bitcoin. What I mean by that, this is currently taking place. We need a break above 94, right? This is what we were talking about. Bitcoin has not broken above 94. This is our personal line in the sand. If we're below 94, that's where we're in bear market territory. Targets are more like 57 to 75. We're going to try and hone in on a better zone on that, but we need to see the market develop a little bit. So yeah, we're very firmly in bearish territory at this point. Let's see. So now you're admitted that you were wrong. No, we were wrong about saying we were going to bounce at 94. We were not wrong to say we were going to 94. We nailed that. And we also said that we'll probably drop, that there's a chance that we can drop lower. But I did expect a bounce at 94. Didn't happen. And again, I'm starting to understand with Intel that I have coming in why that didn't materialize. And the reason that didn't materialize is because none of these big players are buying at 94. They're not buying at 94. They're using the 4-year halving cycle. They're using the 4-year halving cycle fear to drive the market lower. They're manipulating it lower by keeping their... And they're not even doing it on purpose. It's not really... It's not... People say manipulation. It's not an on-purpose thing. It's just that's the way the market works. They're understanding that people are freaked out about the 4-year halving cycle. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and so they are putting their bid down at 70. And because they want a lower entry. And it makes sense when you think about it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Let's see. This is all probabilities. Every TA guy is giving their best educated guess, and Jeb's been in the game a lot longer. Look, I was one of the first people on YouTube to say, nope, this is a dead cat bounce. We're going to 94. I made that call very early on. It's right here, October the 13th. You can go and watch it in the videos. Go watch our video on October the 13th. We said that Bitcoin is going back to bull market support uptrend with a target at 94,000. We pointed to it. We drew it. Made it very clear. And we also said that there was a very high chance that was going to hold. We gave a 10% chance that we drop lower. That 10% chance is taking place right now. And again, we understand now what the reason for that 10% chance taking place right now is. The bid is dry. The order books are empty. Like, nobody's buying. The liquidity just isn't there. And the reason liquidity isn't there is because the liquidity is lower. The liquidity is not non-existent. It's just not where you were expecting it to be. But it's there, and it's not down at 40. It's at 70. And so that's where you're expecting a drop down to 70. But we're not at least currently expecting a drop down to 40. Now, maybe we get to 70 and we realize, wait a minute, no, we're going to drop down. I don't think that's going to happen, though, right? We got down to 94. We called a few days into this bear market. We called a drop down to 94. And then from there, we've been sitting on our hands for the last few days to see what's happening. Now we're calling a drop down to 70 if we can't drop below 94. This is how expert traders and expert technical analysts and expert investors do their game. They sit here and they wait for confirmations. We are quite well confirmed at this point that 94 is resistance. And if we can't break above it, then we're just not bullish. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Still love you, Jeb. My issue is with crypto bros thinking they know it all and speaking with certainty, but they always get it wrong most of the time. We need to be a bit more humble. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not... Again, look, the reason I'm going over all of this, and the reason that we originally called for 94, and the reason that we're now saying that Bitcoin's going to 57 to 75, and again, we're going to try and tighten in that zone. The reason that we're expecting all of that we called all of that, is because I don't want you to be afraid. That's why we made these calls. That's why we painted this picture for you, is we don't want you to be afraid. I have told you over and over and over and over again. I've signaled this hundreds of times on X. I've signaled it hundreds of times on the streams here. You need to be ready for a bear market. You need to have cash in savings. You need to have dry powder. You need to have liquidation prices way down, like below 30. You need to be in those positions prepared for a bear market. Up until we failed to break above 94, I wasn't convinced that was going to happen. The last 24 hours or so have done the convincing. I'm basically like, okay, like at this point, I have flipped bearish, but I need Bitcoin to get above 94 for me to flip bullish. This right here was my line in the sand, right there. Right this moment, right here, around 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday was my line in the sand where I said, nope, that is not what a bull market bounce looks like. That's what the beginning of some kind of bear market looks like. And so, I mean, I think that's pretty good. Like, we said that Bitcoin's going to go down to 94, hit 94 on Friday. By Tuesday, we said, okay, it's literally this period of time where we say we're going to bounce. We don't get the rejection. We say we're going lower. I feel like we're doing pretty good. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I feel like we're doing pretty good. I'd watch me if I wasn't myself. If NVIDIA beats and we crypto keeps bleeding, look out below. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we also have to keep in mind, is that this is not happening in a vacuum. Bitcoin is dropping in correlation with a bit of a pause on the S&P 500. Now, S&P is down 5%. Bitcoin's down, 30%. But that's kind of how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is really diving, but a lot of that has to do with S&P 500. So there are a lot of reasons to believe that the S&P 500 is going to catch a bottom. We just need to see more data. Right, the reason that the S&P 500 is slow right now is because of a lack of data. Like, we just basically got confirmation that October jobs reports and October data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is not coming. That's not good for the economy because that means that the market is flying blind. It doesn't know what's going on. And no one that's a data analyst like myself likes flying blind. We want data. We want facts. We want numbers. We want to know what the hell's going on. And so if we don't have data because of the government shutdown, that puts the brakes on markets. So when the stock market bottoms out, that's going to help Bitcoin. But right now, stock market going through this correction is only helping to expedite this correction that was already taking place on Bitcoin. And so that's why this kind of bounce above 94 yesterday failed. Stock market's going through a very untimely correction. A lot of the bid just isn't there. There's just not a lot of buying pressure here. People are hoping even for $70,000. I mean, I'll quote one thing that I've heard, and that is that, people are thinking that it's worst case scenario that Bitcoin only goes to 85. That's how people are talking, people are talking about $85,000 being worst case scenario. That's worst case scenario because the thinking is inverted. Best case scenario, we go to 60. That's what they're thinking. You as retail are thinking worst case scenario, we go to 60. Best case scenario, we go to 85. That's not how people with money are thinking right now. They're thinking best case scenario, we go to 60. Worst case scenario, we go to 85. Absolute bear market bottom. I would highly, highly, highly doubt it would ever go below 50. I don't think Bitcoin will ever go below $50,000 again. If it does, it'll be short-lived. And it would have to be predicated on some gargantuan exchange going insolvent. Like, MicroStrategy has the liquidity. It's not going to go insolvent if we go down to 50,000. Honestly, guys, ever since FTX collapsed and Binance and CoinMarketCap led the charge on getting proof of reserves online, the vast majority of exchanges are significantly stronger than they were. They have more liquidity. They're more capitalized. Now, there are some outliers here and there, and I won't say any names, but there are some outliers that you've heard about publicly that are having some concerns. I don't necessarily think they're going to blow up, but there are concerns. But you would need to see some exchange with like at least $10 to $50 billion on their balance sheet blow up for Bitcoin to go below 50,000. So yeah, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think in the short term, Bitcoin will probably put in some bearish RSI divergence here, bullish RSI divergence here. I'm sorry, try and rally up to 94. If we break above 94, forget it. Bitcoin might rally again, hit 100. But honestly, at this point, Bitcoin has shown a lot of weakness. A lot of the players have kind of set their bid, and a lot of them are expecting that we're going significantly lower. Didn't you say Bitcoin wouldn't go below 100,000 this like many times earlier this year? Yeah, it was starting to look like that. I was wrong. There you go. I was wrong. And I realized I was wrong after 1010 because honestly, up and until 1010, that theory made a lot of sense. If you'll notice, I didn't say that a single time after 1010 because after 1010, it was coming. After 1010, we said it was going to 94. Before 1010, this $20 billion liquidation, yeah, seeing sub 100 might not have happened. After 1010, no. Now, at some point in the future, and I don't know when this is going to be, at some point in the future, we are going to most likely see Bitcoin leave behind 100,000 forever. In the same way that we've left behind $10,000 forever. We're never going to sub $10,000 ever again. It's not going to happen. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, that's it. OMG, Jeb just admitted he was wrong. Is Jesus coming? Soon. He is coming soon. You need to be ready for it. But yes, if you guys are trying to get me to say I was wrong, I have no problem saying I was wrong. Yes, we were wrong to say that Bitcoin wouldn't go below 100,000. At the end of the day, there was reason to believe that until 1010. After 1010 happened, the writing was on the wall. It was going to happen. All right. Hey, if you guys haven't already, I want you to make sure to check out I Trust Capital. I want to show you why. I want to show you exactly why. The reason you ought to check out I Trust Capital is because there is a correction coming on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is naturally going through a major drop. As Bitcoin goes lower, 90, 80, 70, these are excellent entries. Phenomenal entries for the long run. Bitcoin's fundamentals are incredibly, incredibly, incredibly strong. And if we do see Bitcoin going down to those levels, or even at the level it's at right now, these are excellent long-term plays. And so I want to encourage you to figure out where you're going to actually custody that Bitcoin and crypto. And one of the best places that you can do that is with iTrust Capital, because with iTrust Capital, you're going to be getting access to retirement accounts in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and you're not going to be holding ETFs. You're actually going to be able to hold spot Bitcoin and crypto. So make sure that you go ahead and sign up for iTrust Capital with the link in the description box down below. When you do, you're going to get a $100 funding bonus after you sign up and fund your account. Signing up and funding your iTrust Capital account is going to give you access to all kinds of different retirement vehicles that will help you to succeed here in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space by helping you to avoid taxes in a completely legal way. You can get access to traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs. All of these are phenomenal vehicles you're going to be seeing a lot more about relatively soon. All right. Now, for everybody who's saying, Jeb, what about never going below 100? You do have to realize, I told you at 116 that we were going below 100. So, I mean, you can run a victory lap all you want, but I said in this area over here, Bitcoin's not going below 100. Right here, I told you we were going below 100. So let's just make sure we got this straight. Like, we're not, because I'm happy to admit I'm wrong. I'm not happy to be, misquoted or manipulated. We said at 116, I want to be very clear, we said at 116 that Bitcoin was going below 100,000. It was going to $94,000 to $100,000. We invalidated our call of not going below 100 here. You had $16,000 of price to see that coming. I need to make sure that's extremely clear, because I have a reputation, and I'm happy to tell you that I was wrong on something, but I'm also happy to tell you that 40 days ago I said I was wrong. A month and a half ago we said that we were going below 100,000. So let's keep that clear. Any level to expect a rebalance every time we went below the 20. Every time you went below the 20 MA daily, we also got back for rebounds. Yeah, the 20 MA, 200 MA daily. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, that is significantly farther above where we are right now. So, yeah, that's all the way up here. Let's see. But, yeah, the 200 MA... We would definitely need to see a rally above it. That's at like 110. So yeah, no, I will totally agree with you on that. The 200 is most likely going to fall over. I mean, it has to, right? These prices are so low. It's going to fall over. And we're below pretty much all of the MA bands, even on weekly chart, right? You're getting below the 50, right? I mean, we're really far below the 50 at this point. So at this point, we have to say, okay, we're probably going into a bear market unless Bitcoin can get some kind of bounce. Once again, above 94, we're going higher. Below 94, we're going lower. Above 94, you're going back to 100 first and maybe higher. Below 94, you're heading lower. All right. All right. Let's see. This has been the worst bull run ever. No October, no November. Yeah, and that's where you get into this idea of saying that the 4-year halving cycle was calling October 6th. It was. And it proves that it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy once again. But again, I do think what you're going to see happen here is you're going to see more so of a shortened bear market. I think it's going to be shorter. I don't think it's going to be as deep. And I think you're going to see the bull market resume very quickly. I think what you're going to end up seeing is something like this. I think you're going to see Bitcoin drop down into a zone. This is from the other day. Into a zone kind of like this. And then it's just going to continue higher. And honestly, you'll probably be back at all-time high within a year. You'll probably be back at all-time high within a year. It's really just not a big... This is not a concerning correction in any stretch of the imagination right now. It's really just not scary at all. Is there a bear moon now? I don't know what that means. No, this wasn't the worst bull run. Went from 15 to 126K. Yeah, exactly, guys. It sucked for alts, you know, because Ethereum inflation adjusted didn't even return. But yeah, no. Yep. Let's read some more chat. All right. All right. Hey guys, also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out Stampseed. Big fan of their product. We have it right here on our desk. Right? Haven't checked out Stampseed, you absolutely should. The reason is because the last thing you want to happen is to be hodling straight through the bear market, diamond handing it all the way down, and then at that point, you know, losing your Bitcoin in a fire. Like, you don't want to do that. So highly encourage you, if you have not already, make sure to check out Stampseed with a link in the description box down below. Stampseed is going to help you to keep safe while you are self-custodying and hodling your Bitcoin. Make sure to check that out. All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up for a time of questions. Would love to hear all of your opinions. Would love to hear anything you guys can throw at me. If you want to talk about previous calls that we've made, so happy to do that. If you want to talk about where you think Bitcoin is going, so happy to do that. I'd be more than happy to give you guys my opinion on all of that. Again, cannot encourage you enough. The way that you build wealth in the markets is you pick big cap winners. And by big cap, I'm talking about like really, really, really good real estate, S&P 500, QQQ, VU, Bitcoin, and you break your sell button for like 10 years. That's how you make money. That's how you make money. So that's how you do it. Now, like I said, you need to be prepared for a correction. You need to have an emergency fund in place. You need to have high income and cash flow. You need to make sure that you're not over leveraged. These things are very important because we are most likely moving into a bear market. Give us advice to prepare in bear market. Great point. So, first thing, liquidations. If you are going to get liquidated on your Bitcoin position over $50,000, you need to fix that. You need to fix it now. Like, if you've leveraged longed Bitcoin, not against that necessarily, but if you've done that, you need to make sure that liquidation price is ideally below $35,000. Because let's just say that Bitcoin had the exact same bear market that it had last time. We had a 77% bear market. With the fundamentals, I can confidently say that Bitcoin is not going to see a deeper bear market percentage-wise than it had last time. That would make no sense unless a couple of things changed. Mining incentives change, quantum cracks Satoshi's wallet or something like that. Unless something like that happens, Bitcoin's not going deeper than 77, 78%. That puts Bitcoin down at 30,000. Like, this is like catastrophic, just doing the same thing we did in the last bear market. That's 30K. If you have liquidations on your Bitcoin long, you need them to be below $30,000. That's what you need to do. You need to be below $30,000. If you got to sell Bitcoin so you can buy back in later, then do it. But if you've got debt on your Bitcoin, you need to drive it low enough that you are not going to get liquidated on your Bitcoin positions unless Bitcoin goes below 30,000, because there's a huge amount of support down at 30,000, right? If Bitcoin did drop down here, there's a lot of support at $30,000, and it's also 75% retrace from all-time high. That's just not going to happen. The amount of bid would be incredible, right? The amount of buying would be just astronomical. Bitcoin's not going that low. So you need to get your liquidation prices down below 30. On top of that, you need to make sure that you have income that is large. I want all of you to run something that we call a 50% revenue reduction plan. This is incredibly important for any of you guys that are in any field. What are you going to do if your income drops by 50%? Think about that for a second. Let's say you make $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. What are you going to do if all of a sudden you're making $5,000 a month? What's your plan? Yeah? What's your plan? Because we want to make sure that we have cash flow. Why do we want cash flow? One, we want peace. We want to sleep at night. But two, we also want to be able to, buy the dip, right? So you want to have enough income, one, that you're not pulling your hair out in just a miserable train wreck for the next 18 months. Because here's what's going to happen. If you are in that position, you're going to panic sell the bottom. You're going to sell Bitcoin at $65,000. You're going to be one of the people that sold to all the whales that are buying down here at 70. You're going to be that guy. And that's going to set you up for a lifetime of depression because you missed an incredible bull run that we're going to see next time. Bitcoin saw an 800%, 750% bull run here. If we drop down to 75 and we do half of that, we drop down to 75, we do half of that, we rally 325% off of 75, you end up seeing Bitcoin later on this decade up at like $300,000, $400,000. You do not want to be that guy that sold to the whales at 75. You don't want to be that guy. So what are you going to do? No, excuse me, I'm sorry. What are you going to do if you have a major crash on Bitcoin down to 75,000? Are you going to panic sell the bottom? I mean, think about this. You genuinely got to get in your own head for a minute. You got to think, what are you going to do if Bitcoin goes down to 75,000? Are you in a position where you will panic sell the bottom? Are you? Because if you are, you need to fix that. Right? By the way, Bitcoin is trying to find support at $3 trillion market cap. I figured I'd point that out because that is actually pretty important. That's a pretty important psychological level here. 3 trillion breaking would likely send us down to the next level, which would be 2.75. So that'd be a quarter trillion dollars of market outflowing. That'd be like 85,000. Like our next major target, I do want to point this out. Our next major target on Bitcoin, if we don't get above 94, is 85. That's the next place we're going, is 85. That would, I mean, at that point, it's like, yeah, we're in bear market. We're in a bear market of some kind. That's where we are. Sell now, rebuy later, or keep holding? You know, that's a great question. I am holding. You know, like I said, we've de-risked, reduced debt, all of that. But in general, I'm not really selling a whole lot of Bitcoin. Maybe a little bit, but not much. I'm talking like 5% of it. But generally speaking, I'm in a pretty stable place where I can just round trip it. That's what I'm going to do. But for some of you guys, it's going to be different. For some of you, you might be in this position where you're like, okay, we're going into a bear market. If we're below 94, we're in a bear market. I don't have the risk tolerance to round trip Bitcoin. You might consider doing that. But here's the problem. You know how you are guaranteed to lose as an investor is by buying high and selling low. You need to do anything you possibly can to avoid selling Bitcoin at these levels. Like, this is a terrible place to sell Bitcoin. It's an awful place to sell Bitcoin. It's a really, really crappy place to sell Bitcoin at 30% off of the all-time high. This is where you start buying Bitcoin. So if you can avoid it, like I said, my plan from the very beginning has been to round trip Bitcoin straight through the bear market. I just have to make sure that all the other pieces of the equation are in position to do that. Cash savings, high income, etc. So I would be careful with that, although it is an individual decision that you need to make based on your risk tolerance. You have a bunch of kids, low income, and all your net worth is in Bitcoin. You might need to sell some, even at a loss, to protect yourself and your family. If you're like me and you have a high income and you have savings and all this stuff, you might not need to because you have the risk tolerance to withstand round tripping Bitcoin over the next 12 months. So just at that point, just be careful. You know, just at the end of the day, I think I've boiled this down. This is why I teach in coaching. This is what I tell myself all the time. Seek peace before prosperity. Prosperity does not necessarily generate peace, but peace does almost always generate prosperity. That's the key. That's the key. And my litmus test for whether or not I am in good standing with that is I just always go back. And if any of you guys have been in, coaching with me, you'll remember, I've told several of you guys this in coaching. In Proverbs chapter 3, Solomon says, the Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding hath he established the heavens, by his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace unto thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. This is the key verse. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. If you are doing something that is impacting your sleep, you should probably stop doing it. See the correlation? Wisdom leads to good sleep. What does that mean? What is sleep? It's peace. Sleep in peace, right? As a Christian, we know that if I'm doing something that brings me anxiety and brings me a lot of fear, because it's foolishness, not because you've got a call to go to war and defend your family. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about protecting your family against an intruder. I'm talking about you're doing something that is foolish, and you know it's foolish because you're over-leveraging yourself and it's bringing you a lack of peace. That's where you need to use that litmus test. Can you sleep at night? Because if you can't sleep at night, here's what's going to happen. Your health is going to go to crap. You're not going to be able to focus at work. Your relationships are going to go bad. And you're not going to be an effective trader. You're not going to be an effective boss. You're not going to be an effective husband or wife, because what you've done is you've over-leveraged yourself and you put yourself out there on the line where you just can't think straight. So at the end of the day, if you're saying, man, if Bitcoin goes down to 75, I am going to be a nervous wreck, you need to do something about that, man. I've been telling you that for weeks. You need to do something about that. You need to do something about it now. You need to bring some peace. And the way you bring peace is by following the financial sovereignty way, which we've talked about at length. Hey, by the way, one more thing that can bring you peace, if you haven't already, is you can check out NordVPN, because one thing that you got to watch out for are hackers and thieves. And hackers and thieves are constantly trying to steal from you. They're constantly trying to rob you. They're constantly trying to destroy you. And if you sign up for NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb, you are going to get an early Black Friday exclusive deal on us, where you're going to get big savings. You're going to get 4 months extra. So if you sign up for NordVPN, again, going to nordvpn.com/Jeb, you're going to get all kinds of discounts. Right here, the basic plan, you can get the first 28 months for $80 instead of $324. This is so valuable because NordVPN will protect you and keep you safe while you're browsing online. And by the way, they have an awesome password manager, which I am super, I'm just a massive fan of. It's over here on the Plus version. You get the password manager and breach scanner. This can tell if you've had your data breached anywhere. So if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for NordVPN. Get the 2-year plan. This is the Black Friday sale you've been waiting for. Sign up by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb. Got to make sure that's in the description, but it's a really simple link. Again, nordvpn.com/Jeb. That's JEBB. All right. Going a little past an hour here, so let's go ahead and wrap this out. Really appreciate all of you guys being here. Once again, I want to make very clear our position. Above 94, Bitcoin's in bullish territory. Below 94, Bitcoin's in bear market territory. If Bitcoin does manage to put a bottom in here and builds this RSI divergence, rallies up to 94, that's where we're saying, okay, we're on our way. We're looking at future levels to break, 100, 106, etc. But so long as Bitcoin's below 94, we're looking at lower lows. That's our line in the sand is 94. Every time you go into a bull market or a bear market, you got to establish this line where you're like, above this line, we're in bull market. Below this line, we're in bear market. Over here, this was give or take about $25,000. Remember 25,236? Who remembers 25,236? Queen's in chat. I know she'll remember it. We talked about 25,236 over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I told you over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So long as Bitcoin's above 25,236, we're in bull market, because that was this peak over here, 25,236. We talked about this over and over. I mean, I can't tell you how many millions of times we've discussed that, right? Bitcoin rejected off of it, fell back through, broke through it, turned it into support. This moment right here, this is where Bitcoin went into a bull market. And now, if Bitcoin's going into a bear market, it's because of what's going on in this hourly time frame with 94,000. 94,000, mark my words, is the level to watch out for. If we're below it, we're in a bear market. If we're above it, we're in a bull market. It really is just that simple. Really is just that simple. Hey, I really appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out the different sponsors that we talked about today. Make sure to check out iTrust Capital, get yourself invested over there. Check out NordVPN, protect yourself, Stampseed, protect yourself. Once again, it's very important that you guys are building a portfolio in a way that is going to set you up for long-term success. That's where the incredible amount of wealth and stability that our family has been able to build has come from. Is for making long-term decisions, planting seeds in the ground, watching them grow for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And that's what we're going to keep doing, because that's where you get parabolic growth in your portfolio. That's where you get parabolic growth in your life. And one of the most important things in life that you can figure out is how to not get reset back to zero. By the grace of God, we've never gotten liquidated, gone all the way down to zero, never lost everything. And that's because we've used proper risk management. We grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. We get more advanced and developed every single year because we put risk mitigation systems in place where we might lose some, but we're not losing everything. We're keeping ourselves safe, guys, because that's what we need. Is we need to pursue peace. And then when you pursue that peace, your soul will be in a place where you're able to build prosperity. And I really want you to have that prosperity. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot more content coming your way. We are going to be all over this Bitcoin bear market if that's what ends up getting confirmed here over the next few days. Very excited to end up doing some short trades with you guys. Very excited to get some low entries. Just very excited to build wealth in the bear market, because you've got to remember, it's wealth that's built in the bear market. You get rich in the bull market, but you build wealth in the bear market, because that's when you get the good entries. So stay tuned, because amazing entries are coming, and I cannot wait to see what you guys are going to be able to do. Big shout out to Stampseed. Looks like they are in chat. Loving Stampseed. If you guys haven't already, make sure to check them out. Once again, keep you guys safe. Titanium can withstand like up to 3,000 degrees. which is going to help keep you safe in case your house were to burn down. Because listen, it happens. People's houses catch on fire. Like I literally, I came home and not I came home, but I was in our living room recently, and my daughter had walked over and she turned on the gas stove. She's 2 years old. She turned on the gas stove. I'm like, what does that smell? Like, she turned on the gas. So I like got the leaf blower and blowed the whole house out. I'm like, crap happens. It does. I mean, it just really does. And you don't want to lose $400,000 worth of Bitcoin because your house burns down. Losing your house is bad enough. You don't want to lose your seed phrases too because you got it in that safe. Well, guess what? You got a safe that's fire rated up to 1600 degrees. That's just saying that that safe is not going to go above 350 degrees on the inside when it's 1600 degrees on the outside. Titanium's fine at 350 degrees. It's just chilling. Like, it's probably cold to the touch in there. Your seed phrases on your paper are gone. Putting seed phrases on paper is stupid. Like, do not store $100, $200, $300, $500,000 worth of Bitcoin. Don't store $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in paper. It's just really dumb. So please, I really encourage you guys, check out Stamp Seed. Big fan of their product. It's a lot of fun to use. But guys, like I said, we're going to wrap it out. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.